right, shall we have a look at the question that Amam's put on the screen over here? Let's read the instruction before we get started. It says here that we are given the gradient. So we know that when we're given the gradient, that means m is equal to, so m is equal to, and we know the formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And then over here, what we're going to do is we're just going to substitute in these values. I know that I'm going to replace m with negative 16. I'm going to name this x1 and y1, and I'm going to name this x2 and y2. And then we're just going to sub in, right? So we're going to get negative 16 is equal to y2 is 2 minus y1, which is negative 6, over x2, which is a, minus negative 3, which is x1. Right, so I'm going to get negative 16 is equal to, this part over here will give me a positive 2 plus 6. Hello, Bikanyo. Oh, always lovely to see you. 2 plus 6 will give us 8 at the top, 8 over a, that negative and negative will give us a positive. So we'll have a plus 3, right? So I'm going to cross multiply. I'm going to take this and put it over 1, and I'm going to cross multiply. Multiply that way, multiply this way. So I'm going to end up with negative 16 into a plus 3 is equal to 1 times 8 will give me 8. And then we just need to distribute this in. So I'm going to get negative 16a, negative 16 plus or multiplied by positive 3 will give us negative 48 is equal to 8. Then I'm going to take negative 48 over to the other side, and I'm going to get negative 16a is equal to 8 plus 48 will give me 56. Okay. Sorry, guys. I'm dividing by negative 16 on both sides. Divide by negative 16 on both sides. All right. Therefore, a is equal to, I'm not sure. I need to find a calculator. 56 divided by 16. Should give us a decimal. Yeah, so the answer will be negative 7 over 2. All right, and that's the answer we would get there. Right. All right, and that's how we can do these kinds of calculations. Remember, this is what we spoke about on Monday. Remember, tonight is quiz night, so I hope we're all ready to do that. Starting from after the June holidays, Ma'am is going to start, I'm going to bring back quiz results, so we'll be able to see who's doing better than others in their quizzes. Those of you who are attempting your quizzes and those of you who are getting them right, we'll be looking at that. So I hope everybody's doing okay. Today we're going to jump into a little bit of equations of a straight line, but before we do that, we're going to finish up where we left off, because we were talking about parallel and perpendicular lines and the gradients of these, right? Remember the gradient formula? We do know m is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Right. So when we talk about parallel and perpendicular gradients, we know that if we have two lines, I'm going to name this one line 1 and line 2. We know that the gradient of line 1 is what to the gradient of line 2? What do we know about these two? The two gradients are... Who has an answer for me? They should be equal, right? We should get M1 is equal to M2. All right, when we talk about, I'm going to name this one equation 1 and this one equation 2. When we look at equations that are perpendicular to each other that give us a 90-degree angle, we know that M1 multiplied by M2 should equal -1. Right, but this can be made simpler in that for anything to equal -1, we know that 1 is actually the multiplicative inverse of anything, right? This is, or the two values will be multiplicative inverses of each other. So this is the multiplicative identity. Okay, and I'll tell you guys what I mean by that in just a second. Right, so if we find that M1, or our gradient of the first line, is positive 2. What we're going to do to find M2, we don't even have to do much. All we're going to do is we're going to say the second gradient is then going to be negative. And then if I change this into a fraction, I would write this 2 as 2 over 1. That means my M2 is just going to be negative 1 over 2. And if I multiply these two things, they're definitely going to give me negative 1. So we're just looking at the reciprocal of each of these values. So if I tell you that the first gradient is 3 over 4, then I know that I need to multiply this gradient by negative 4 over 3 to get to negative 1. Right? So let me ask you guys, if I have negative 2 over 5 as my first gradient, and I know that the two lines that I'm working with are perpendicular, I know that their gradients must equal negative 1. What is going to be the value of the second gradient? What is the second gradient? If the first one is negative 2 over 5, the next one is going to be?
5 over negative 2.
Okay, you're correct about the 5 over 2 part, but do you see how this one is already negative? So we can't have another negative, right? Because a negative and a negative would give us positive. So
5
this
over
answer,
2.
beautiful. That's the one I'm looking for, 5 over 2. Nicely done. All right, are we all okay with how to calculate for parallel and perpendicular gradients? I'm going to give you guys a short exercise. I want you to just do question A. And remember, we're still using the fact that they want us to write down the equation. So we're using the idea of y is equal to mx plus c. And we're just using the gradient that they've given us over here. And because they're perpendicular, we're just going to look for the inverse of that, the multiplicative inverse. And then we're going to use my x value and my y value over here to find those values that go in there. All right, so find a value for the equation. Okay, would you like me to do A? Perfect, I can do that with you. All right, so I know that I'm looking for the equation of a line that is perpendicular to this one. So I know that because it's perpendicular to this one, if the gradient of this line is 2, what is the gradient of my line going to be? The gradient is going to be equal to, remember, I can rewrite this as a fraction. I can rewrite it as positive 2 over 1. So the gradient of my new line is going to be, anyone got an idea for me? Negative? Negative a half, correct. Yes, absolutely, Palisa. It's going to be the opposite of that with a negative. So negative 1 over 2. Lovely. So now we have an equation. I'm sorry, we have a gradient, and we can then take the gradient and put it into the formula. So I'm going to go y is equal to, I've got my gradient. My gradient is negative a half x plus c. And now I want to find c. I need to find c. But I've been given values for x and for y. So I'm going to substitute in values for x and y. So my y value is 3. So I'm going to write 3 is equal to negative a half multiplied by the x value, which is 0, plus c. This whole thing over here is going to equal 0. So 3 is equal to 0 plus c is just c. So the equation of the line will read y is equal to negative a half x plus 3. All right. Kanyo, did that help?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right. Can I then ask you guys to do B on your own? I'll ask you guys, or let's do this. You can do B, do question B, and then also do this one that ma'am's added down here. Okay, these two. We'll call this one D. So we're going to do B and D. All right. And then you can pop your favorite emoji in the chat when you are ready. Sure, Wiganya's already done. So I hope everybody else is catching up. I'm not going to give you guys too long, right? We've got other things to talk about today. We've got a little less than a minute left, guys. All right, peeps, let's have a chat. Okay, let's start with B. In B, I've got a gradient over here of -3. I'm going to turn that into a fraction, -3/1, right? So that means the line that I want to find the equation for has a gradient of +1/3, right? So now I'm going to take this, y is equal to 1/3x plus c, and they've given me these two values. That's my x value there and my y value there. So I'm going to substitute that. I'm going to go -2 equals 1/3, open brackets, put 0 in there, plus c. So there's a 0 here. So that's going to give me -2 is equal to 0 plus c, which is just c. Therefore, the equation of this line is y is equal to 1/3x minus 2. All right, that's what we get for that one. Now, why wouldn't we just show how did we get the, yes, you can, absolutely. But Saneli, so because things like multiplicative identities are something we learn in grade 8, we can already deduce that you know how to find it. So even if you wanted to do this, if you wanted to go M1 times M2 equals -1/2, therefore M2 is equal to 1/3, that's fine. You can do that just to show them that you know what you're doing. But it's already kind of assumed that in grade 10, you understand how inverses work. Okay. Is that okay? You can do that. All right, that's perfect. Okay, in question D over here, I want us to be very careful, grade 10s. They've told us over here that the two lines are parallel. So what does that tell me about my new line? My new line, okay, I don't have to find the reciprocal of my gradient. My new line also has a gradient of 3. My new line also has a gradient of 3. So I can then use this y is equal to 3x plus c, and then I'm going to use these two values. I've got an x here and I've got a y there. So I'm then going to go 15 is equal to 3 multiplied by 4 plus c. So 15, I'm going to continue over here. 15 is equal to 3 times 4, give me 12 plus c. Then my 12 must go over and minus, therefore c is equal to 15 minus 12, which is 3. Therefore, y is equal to 3x plus 3. All right, and that's the answer we're looking for over here. Thumbs up, how did we do? Okay, did we do, okay, did we mess up anything? Or how did we feel about that question? Are we all good? Okay. All right, the radio silence is scaring me a little, but it's fine. It's okay. Kanya's like, what happened where? I'm gonna ask what the is about. Half. Okay, that's okay. 1 out of 2 is okay, Kat. I'm gonna assume we didn't note that this thing said parallel instead of perpendicular. We need to be very vigilant, hey? All right. Okay, great hands. Can we step it up a little bit? Can we step it up? I want us to try some somewhat interesting analytical geometry before we get into it, okay? All right, I'm going to ask us to look at this question, all right? It looks, ma'am, why? But it's okay, all right? I want us all to take a minute to read the question that we've been given. Read it, read this question. And if you're wondering where it's from the Gauteng November 2022 paper 2. Okay, so if you want to go and have a look at the rest of the paper, you're more than welcome to do that. I want you to take in everything that you're seeing about the question, read all the information, look at the picture, think of the things that you could possibly calculate, think of all the possible questions they could ask you. And once you've done that, pop the glasses guy emoji in the chat for me. As soon as you've had a look at everything, you understand exactly what it is they're going to ask of you, all that kind of stuff. All right. Okay, peeps. Let's look at what we've been given here. Right. So I always say this, and I'm going to repeat it again. Whenever we are given any question, what is step number 1? Who remembers what ma'am said step number 1 is? Anybody remember? Step number 1 is to do what? It's not to label. I'll tell you that. We're not doing trigonometry. Okay, step number 1 is always is read the info. Read the information given. Okay, because sometimes the information that is given to you over here does not show up on the picture. And then you're going to be putting your hand up, telling your teacher that somebody didn't set this paper right. Meanwhile, it was perfectly fine. You just didn't read the information that you were given. So step number 1, always read this little thing that they give you over here. Make sure that everything you have over here coincides with what you have in your picture. All right, so the question says, or the information says, in the diagram below, A, B, and C are the vertices of a triangle, ABC. Okay, so we know we've got a triangle. AD is drawn such that D is the midpoint of BC. All right, great. So we know that somewhere we're going to have to remember how to calculate for the midpoint. Right, let's have a look at the questions. Okay. Just let me know, grade 10s. Would you like me to do these questions with you, or would you like to try them alone? How are we feeling about these questions? Are we okay to do them alone? Okay, I can give you guys a couple of hints. If we look over here, they're asking us for the gradient. So you need to know the gradient formula. Over here, where they're asking us to calculate the length, right? I hope we know what formula to use there. Okay, I'm going to go with cat. Over here, where they say determine the value of K. I hope we can see from the drawing exactly what K is and what it represents. And then it says, is AD perpendicular, not parallel? Is AD perpendicular to BC? Show all calculations. And remember, once you're done, you must answer the question. You must also say yes or no. So I'm going to give you guys let's make it a little bit more. I will give you guys 7 minutes, okay, to answer these 4 questions. When you are ready, sure, no problem. Let me actually do this. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to move this up just a little bit so we can see everything at the same time. Is that better? Hopefully you can see everything now. Okay, pop your favorite emoji in the chat when you're ready, guys. We've got 1 minute left, guys. All right, peeps, that's time. Shall we have a look at the questions? Okay, let's start with number 1. Okay, it says, determine the gradient. So I know for the gradient, m is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And they say they want the gradient of line BC. So I know I'm using that value and that value. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to label. I'm going to start by naming this x1 and y1, and I'm going to name this x2 and y2. Right, and then I'm just going to substitute. So my gradient is equal to 6 minus 2 over 4 minus negative 8. Right, that's going to give me 6 minus 2 will give me 4 at the top, divided by 4 plus 8 will give me 12. Therefore, my gradient is 1 over 3. Okay, 2 marks, 1 for the correct substitution and 1 for the final answer. Okay, so in the next question, they want us to calculate the length of BC, and the only thing we can use to calculate the length in analytical geometry is our distance formula, right? We're going to use our distance formula. I'm going to answer this question up here, guys. Okay, we're going to use the distance formula. So I'm going to say BC is equal to the square root of, and lucky for me, I've already labeled. Let me just write the equation down. X2 minus x1 all squared plus y2 minus y1 all squared. Okay, we're just going to substitute. Is equal to the square root of x2, which is 4, minus x1, which is negative 8. All of this all squared plus y2, which is 6, minus y1, which is 2, all squared. That is the square root of, that is 12 squared, plus 6 minus 2, that is 4 squared. Okay, so the square root of 12 squared plus 4 squared would give us 4 root 10. And remember, guys, we spoke about making sure that we don't leave things as decimals unless they tell us to. Especially in this kind of situation, your surd form, so your answer with your surd in it, is the most accurate answer. So there's no need for you to click SD and give me that the answer is 12,65. No, you just leave it like that. This is the most accurate answer that we're going to get. All right, so we've been told over here, we're going to calculate the value of K, and we've already been told that AD has been drawn such that the value, or D, the point D itself, is the midpoint of BC. So in order for us to find the value of K, we're looking for the midpoint, but we don't have to calculate for both midpoints because they've already given us the X value. We just need to calculate for the Y value. Sorry, I forgot mark allocation in question 2. Mark allocation would just be the substitution and then the final answer. Okay, like we said, in grade 10, we're not going to test whether you know how to substitute things in and put them together. They just want to see if you understand which equations to use, especially in analytical geometry. So they're not going to give you a mark for all of this stuff in the middle. All right. You can just take this exactly the way it is and punch it into your calculator, and this will give you your mark. All right. If we determine the value of k, k is just the y values of my graph, and I know of my midpoint. So I know that the midpoint is going to be y1 plus y2 divided by 2. And that's going to equal to y1 is 4. Oh, sorry, is 2 plus y2, which is 6, divided by 2. Okay. And 2 plus 6, that's 8, divided by 2 is equal to 4. So again, 2 marks, 1 for substituting and 1 for the final answer. That's all you're going to get. All right. So now they're asking us, is AD perpendicular to BC? Show all your calculations. Now, if we want to find out if two things are perpendicular, remember we said that the gradient of the one multiplied by the gradient of the other need to equal -1. So we first need to figure out the gradient of BC, which we already have because we calculated it in the first one. We calculated in the first question. So now, because we know that the gradient of BC is 1/3, what are we expecting the gradient of AD to be? Who can tell me? Because we know that we want them to be perpendicular, if the one gradient is 1/3, what would we want the gradient of AD to be? That's it, Palisa, absolutely. We want it to be -3/1. That's what we want to see. And if we don't get -3/1, then they're not perpendicular. The answer is going to be no. So I know that this value over here is -2 and 4. Okay, I'm going to calculate the gradient of AD. The gradient of AD is equal to, I'm just going to, again, y2 minus y1. I'm going to name this x2, y2, and x1, y1. Right, y2 minus y1 will be 7 minus 4 over x2, which is -3 minus -2. That's going to give me 7 minus 4 will give me 3 over -3 plus 2 will give us -1. And indeed, we do find that we have the exact correct gradient, right? We needed -3/1, and that's exactly what we got. Therefore, yes, you can say, therefore, AD is perpendicular to BC. All right. Now, in this particular question, no, I'm skipping a step. Sorry, guys. That is the correct answer. I think we should just add in here that 1/3 multiplied by -3/1 equals -1. Right. I don't think it's particularly necessary, but I think just so that they understand that you know what you're doing, you can add that in there. You will get 1 mark for calculating the gradient of AD. You will get 1 mark for knowing that the gradients need to equal -1 and for the conclusion. All right, let's see, guys. That's what I'm saying, Kat, not really, because if you already understand the mathematics behind it, then you can just say yes or no. Okay, I don't think it has to come with a reason. But remember, you must answer the question. The question says, is AD perpendicular to BC? That is a yes or no answer. You must give them a yes or no, or you must say AD is perpendicular to BC, like ma'am has said. All right. Okay, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. How much did we get out of 9, guys? Tell me. I know I got 9 out of 9. What did you guys get? Nine out of 9. Nice one, Kat. Everybody else, how did we do? Well done, Palisa. Saneliso 8. Oh, Mulebogeng, what happened? I know it's Bikanyo, but I keep calling you by your other name. Bikanyo, what happened? Okay, I hope we recognize where we've gone wrong. Ah, I see. That's okay, Saneliso. It happens. It does. Remember, this is the place for you to make mistakes, not during a test or during your exam. We make mistakes here so that we don't duplicate them during exams. All right. We don't make the same mistake. Okay, let's try something else. Let's try something a bit more. Now, what ma'am has done here is she has taken analytical geometry and she's put it together with Euclidean geometry, okay, in this particular question. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of time to read the info. Read the info, and when you're ready, pop the glasses guy in the chat to let me know that you've read through the information and you've picked up on the important things. Oh, I see. That's okay, Bukanya, as long as we understand where we went wrong so that we don't make the same mistake again. Yeah? All right. Let me know when you've read, guys. All right, peeps. Okay, we can't waste any more time. If you're a bit confused as to what's going on, that's fine as well. You could just say, hey, ma'am, I don't know. I don't know what's happening. Why are they asking so many weird things? Why is there a parallelogram in analytical geometry? Okay, it's going to be fine. Let's talk about exactly what it is they're asking us for here. All right, if we read the information, we are told that in the diagram, C is a point on the y-axis, right? So if this point is on the y-axis, what does that tell me about its x value? What is its x value? What's the x value of C, guys? Okay, remember, this acts like an intercept. It's almost like an intercept, right? It is 0, correct, Kat? It's 0. So we already know that the x value for C is 0. We just need to find the y value if they do ask us for it, right? It also says such that A is the 0.04, B is the 0.4, -4, C and D, right? Which here, C and D, they didn't give us any values for C, they gave us values for D, are vertices of a parallelogram. So the important part here is that we've been told that A, B, C, D is a parallelogram. So we already know that we can use the properties of a parallelogram. Can anybody give me some properties of a parallelogram? There are a few that we already know. Anybody name one? There's quite a few, but we can think of the easiest ones that we're used to. Correct. Opposite sides are equal. Lovely. We know that the opposite sides of a parallelogram are equal. Anything else? There's another one that also speaks about opposite sides. Opposite sides are what? Opposite angles are equal. Yes, Abulele, good. That one. Okay, I'll change this to angles for now. Lovely. Opposite angles are equal. We also know that opposite sides are parallel. Right. We also know that the diagonals what? What do the diagonals of a parallelogram do? They bisect. Beautiful. Good. The diagonals bisect. Nice one, Desmarie and Kat. Good. We know that they bisect. And we know that that word bisect means where the two diagonals meet. So where DB and AC meet, that point right there is going to be the midpoint of my parallelogram. Right. Okay. So we have all this lovely information that we've been given. Let's look at the questions. Okay, it's a lot of questions. I don't think we're going to get through all of them. We've only got 11 minutes. Okay. I want you guys to have a look at the questions. I'm going to make them smaller and I'm going to move them over to the side so that we can look at the questions and the drawing at the same time. Let's make sure. All right, there we go. Okay, can I give you guys some time? Look at what ma'am has done now. There we go. Okay, we're going to calculate for question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4, and question 5. All right. Question 6 is also a nice one. All right, I'm going to give you guys about 6 minutes to get through this because we are going to run out of time and it is quiz night, so we still need to be able to do that. Pop your favorite emoji when you're ready. Okay. Oh, pop your favorite emoji in the chat when you're ready. I didn't finish my sentence. Sorry, guys. All right, take it away. 1 minute, guys. All right, peeps, we're out of time. It's okay if you didn't finish. I hope you guys can take a screenshot, excuse me, and go try these questions. Remember, it is quiz day, so you can, use the quiz as also a way to help you guys with these kinds of questions, because we are going to get these kinds of questions in our quiz today. All right, let's start with the easier ones. We'll do questions 1, 2, and 3 first. All right, it says here, calculate the length of diagonal DB. So length, again, is the distance formula. So we can just go DB. Oh, now I'm writing in. DB is equal to the square root of, oh, I forgot to label. Make this x2 and y2, and we can make this x1 and y1. Right. Remember the order in which you do this, it won't matter. The answer will still be the same. So even if you did x1, y1 and x2, y2 there, it won't make a difference. The answer will come out exactly the same. All right. So I'm going to take x2, which is -4 again, right? All squared, plus the y values. Y2 is 2 minus -4, all squared, right? This is going to give me, and I can just punch this into my calculator the exact way I'm looking at it. So that's going to give me the square root of -8 squared plus 6 squared, and should give me exactly 10 units, right? So the answer I'm looking for here is 10. 10 units. All right, it says calculate the coordinates of M, the midpoint of BD. So we're using the midpoint of DB. I know that. Nice. I've already labeled them. I know that the formula for the gradient, not the gradient, the midpoint is x1 plus x2 divided by 2. So I'm going to get 4 plus -4 over 2. And then for my y values, it's y1, which is -4, plus y2, which is 2 over 2. Okay, and this should give me 4 plus -4, that gives us 0 divided by 2 is just 0. And -4 plus 2 is -2 divided by 2 is -1. That's what we should get there. All right, it says calculate the gradient of AD. Okay, if we calculate the gradient of AD, gradient is equal to, now because I don't need B anymore, I'm going to name this part over here x1 and y1 for my gradient. So my gradient says y2, which is 2 minus y1, 4, over x2, which is -4 minus 0. 2 minus 4 will give me -2 over -4, which is equal to +1/2. That's what I'm going to get. Now, the next question says prove. It's going to take a little bit longer for us to prove these because we are out of time. It is 6 p.m. Please try these last 4 questions together. Not together, on your own, because we are going away. But tonight is quiz night, so I'm going to pop the link to the quiz in the chat. Okay, I'd just like to emphasize, grade 10s, that analytical geometry is more about knowing what to do. So we can't sort of logically explain it through, because if we had to logically explain it away, you would have to spend a lot of time making up these brand new equations that you can use, or these formulas that you can use. So if you want to do really well at analytical geometry, you need to know your formulas.